I want you to take a second and just imagine the sheer, almost magical complexity of the modern world around you right now.
Yeah, it's a lot when you really stop to think about it.
Right. Like, think about all those shiny high-tech miracles of modern life that you probably interact with every single day. We're talking about, precision lasers, the impossibly crisp glowing screens in your pockets, super fast electronics, and even like microscopic cancer targeting medicines.
All the stuff we just treat as totally normal now.
Exactly. We completely take it for granted. But now I want you to imagine that every single one of those seemingly unrelated technological marvels actually relies on an invisible backstage engineer.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Thanks. Yeah, a
Yeah.
hidden force that just makes the magic happen. Yet most people walking down the street couldn't even name it if you paid them.
It is, without a doubt, the ultimate unsung hero of the periodic table. I mean, if our modern infrastructure were a theater production, this element isn't the star actor soaking in the applause.
No, definitely not.
It's the person in the dark booth in the back, making sure the spotlights hit their mark and the stage doesn't collapse.
And that is the exact mission of today's deep dive. We're looking at a huge stack of source material on element number 39, which is yttrium.
Spelled with a Y.
Right, Yttrium. And we're going to uncover this quiet enabler of modern civilization and explore what is honestly a really mind-bending reality.
Which is that human progress right now relies almost entirely on obscure, hidden materials that most of us never even think about.
Yes, and yttrium's a perfect symbol of that. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand yttrium, we really have to look at its scientific identity first.
Right, we have to start with the basics.
We're talking about atomic number 39, atomic mass of about 88.9, and it sits in this weird middle ground on the periodic table.
It really acts as a bridge. So technically, yttrium is a transition metal.
And those are like the classic metals. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Those are the elements we typically think of as your workable metals. Iron, copper, titanium, that kind of thing. If you were to hold a chunk of pure yttrium in your hand, it would look like a silvery metallic solid.
Okay.
It conducts electricity, and it stays fairly stable in the air because it immediately forms this protective oxide coating right on its surface.
Like an invisible shield against rust.
Basically, yes. But structurally, it doesn't behave like a normal transition metal at all. It actually behaves like a rare earth element.
Which is so strange. And looking at the sources, they highlight that it has absolutely zero ancient civilizational role.
None.
Like, the Romans weren't forging swords out of it. The ancient Egyptians weren't making jewelry with it. It is entirely a creature of the modern age.
It really is.
But to figure out why this obscure metal powers our future, the research suggests we actually first have to look at its past. And that means zooming way, way out to the cosmos.
Right, because yttrium wasn't made in the Big Bang.
Wait, really? I thought everything started there.
Well, no. During the birth of the universe, you mostly just got the basic building blocks, hydrogen, helium, maybe a tiny bit of lithium. But yttrium is what we call a later generation element.
Okay, so it came later.
Exactly. It formed long after the universe had already gone through multiple cycles of star birth, death, and enrichment.
The sources mention it forms through I'll make sure I get this right, a slow neutron capture process.
Yes, the SES process.
But what does that actually mean? I mean, I'm picturing stars violently smashing into each other, but the word slow makes it sound much less dramatic.
Yeah, it's actually much slower and more methodical than that. So inside aging stars, there are these free neutrons just kind of floating around.
Okay.
Over thousands or even millions of years, the nucleus of a lighter atom will just bump into one of these neutrons and absorb it.
Oh, wow.
And then it absorbs another and another. Eventually, that atom gets too heavy and unstable, so one of those neutrons actually decays into a proton.
And adding a proton changes the actual identity of the element, right?
Exactly. It slowly creeps up the periodic table, literally step by step, generation after generation of stars, until it finally hits atomic number 39.
That is wild.
It's part of the universe's more complex chemical vocabulary. It literally takes generations of stars living and dying just to cook up this one element.
So it's this cosmic late bloomer. It finally arrives on Earth after this epic journey, but it doesn't even form giant, shiny veins of ore.
Yep.
It becomes a total geological wallflower. It just hides in the background. On Earth, Yttrium basically hangs out almost exclusively with heavy rare earth elements.
Yes, in these incredibly complex minerals.
Right, the sources list these crazy names like xenotime, monazite, bastnasite, gadoliniite, euxenite, and fergusonite, just these hard-to-pronounce rocks scattered globally.
Very widely scattered.
Which makes me wonder if it's scattered everywhere in trace amounts. Why is the supply chain considered so fragile? Like, why can't we just open a mine in our backyard, scoop up some dirt, and get it?
What's fascinating here is that the difficulty isn't extreme rarity.
It's not.
No, not at all. Yttrium is actually more common in the Earth's crust than silver or lead.
Wait, really? More common than silver?
Yep. The real challenge is entirely about separation. Remember earlier when you mentioned that yttrium behaves like a bridge to rare earth chemistry?
Yeah.
Well, rare earth elements are basically chemical identical twins.
Because their outer electron shells are the same?
That is the core of the problem. In chemistry, how an element reacts with, say, acids, bases, or heat is mostly determined by its outermost layer of electrons.
Right.
And rare earth elements, along with yttrium, all have the exact same outer electron configuration.
Oh, I see.
So when you dump them into a vat of acid to try and dissolve them and separate them, they all react the exact same way.
They just stick together.
Yeah.
So how do you actually isolate the yttrium if they all act like the exact same element?
You have to rely on incredibly microscopic differences in the actual physical size of the atoms.
That sounds impossible.
It's tough. You use a process called solvent extraction. Basically, you mix the dissolved rocks with an organic liquid that slightly, and I mean by a fraction of a percent, prefers to bond with a slightly smaller atom over a slightly larger one.
So you pour it in, mix it up, and you get a mixture that is maybe, what, 1% more yttrium than it was a minute ago?
Pretty much. And then you do it again and again.
Oh my God.
Hundreds, sometimes thousands of consecutive chemical baths just endlessly cascading to slowly, painstakingly purify the yttrium out from its identical twins.
That sounds like a total nightmare.
It is agonizingly slow, incredibly complex, and requires massive industrial facilities.
Which brings up the obvious question, why bother? Like, what makes this silvery rock worth thousands of acid baths?
The payoff is huge, though.
Right, because the answer in the source material is that once we extract this quiet amplifier, it basically unlocks the sensory and technological landscape of modern life.
Yeah.
It literally illuminates our world.
Absolutely. I mean, for a long time, yttrium was just a chemical curiosity sitting on a shelf somewhere. But its true importance really emerged in the modern age when we figured out how to use it in phosphors.
And phosphors are materials that emit light when exposed to radiation or electrons.
Right, exactly. And specifically, red phosphors.
Ah, okay. So if you remember those deep, boxy color televisions, the old cathode ray tube TVs, you actually have yttrium to thank for the picture.
You really do.
Because before yttrium, the color red on a TV screen was kind of dull and washed out. Yttrium was the secret ingredient that made the vibrant red colors actually pop.
And the principles of using yttrium in those old TV phosphors evolved directly into the modern displays we use today.
Like LEDs.
Yes, the light-emitting diodes that light our homes and the ultra-crisp screens we stare at every single day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Hmm.
Because yttrium doesn't just sit in our screens making pretty colors. We actually combine it to create synthetic gemstones that we then use to shoot lasers.
Yes, solid-state lasers.
The big one the sources point to is yttrium aluminum garnet, or YAG. But the text keeps using this phrase, doping the crystal.
Right.
Wait, doping? Like injecting steroids into a gemstone. What does that actually mean?
Well, it's not quite steroids. It's more like highly specific architectural replacement.
Okay, paint me a picture.
Imagine you have a brick wall, perfectly structured. That's your YAG crystal. Yttrium commonly forms a +3 oxidation state, which means it forms the incredibly stable, solid framework of that wall.
Got it.
Now imagine taking out just a few of the regular bricks and replacing them with special glowing glass bricks.
So you were literally swapping out atoms.
Yes. You swap out a tiny percentage of the yttrium atoms and replace them with another rare element like neodymium.
Okay.
The neodymium is the active ingredient, the glowing glass brick. When you pump energy into this crystal, the neodymium gets excited and emits the laser beam.
But wait, why do you need the yttrium then?
Because the neodymium couldn't do it alone. It would physically fall apart under that intense energy. The yttrium is the structural backbone that holds the entire crystal lattice together while the laser fires.
Ah, so it's the backstage engineer again. It's not the star of the show emitting the laser. It's the stage holding the star up so it doesn't collapse.
Exactly. And because that stage is so incredibly stable, These solid-state lasers are some of the most powerful and versatile in the world.
What do we use them for?
Oh, everything. They are used in manufacturing for cutting thick steel plates, in military rangefinders, and even industrial engraving.
But yttrium's stabilizing superpower goes way beyond lasers, right? The sources show its use in something called yttrium stabilized zirconia.
Yes, it's a huge one.
And this is used in thermal barrier coatings for jet engines. Let me see if I understand the mechanism here. Zirconia is a really tough ceramic, but when it gets superheated inside a jet turbine, its crystal structure physically shifts and changes shape,
Correct.
and that shifting causes it to crack and shatter, right?
Think of it like water freezing into ice. When water changes phases, it expands. Zirconia does something very similar under extreme heat. The molecules rearrange, the volume changes, and the ceramic cracks.
But when you add a little bit of yttrium into the mix, it acts like adding molecular rebar into concrete.
The rebar is an excellent way to picture it. The yttrium atoms lock the zirconia's crystal structure into one permanent phase.
So it can't shift.
Exactly. It physically prevents the molecules from shifting around no matter how hot or cold it gets.
So that's why they coat jet engine turbine blades with it. It literally stops the underlying metal engine parts from melting by providing this incredibly stable, heat-resistant ceramic shield that just refuses to crack under the extreme temperature shifts of flight.
Jet engines, the oxygen sensors in your car's exhaust system, solid oxide fuel cells, it's everywhere.
Wow.
Even those ultra-tough dental ceramics used for crowns and bridges in your mouth, yttrium prevents all of these materials from failing under stress.
It is shaping light and structure in ways we just take completely for granted.
They really do.
But yttrium doesn't just make our screens glow and our jet engines tough. Our sources make it clear that it is pushing the extreme boundaries of physics and biology.
Oh, absolutely.
And when it comes to biology, there is this totally bizarre paradox. Life on Earth does not require yttrium at all.
It has absolutely zero essential biological role.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not in our DNA, it's not in our proteins, our bones, our blood, or our nerves.
Wait, nothing at all?
Nothing. Plants don't need it, microbes don't need it, the biosphere completely ignores it.
Yet, despite having no natural place in biology, humanity figured out how to use this inorganic, cosmic late bloomer to hunt down disease.
Yes, we did.
The sources detail the use of a specific radioactive isotope called Yttrium-90 in targeted cancer therapy.
Radiotherapy, yeah.
But how does that actually work? If the body doesn't recognize yttrium, how does it know where the cancer is?
Well, the yttrium itself doesn't know. Yttrium-90 is a radioisotope that emits beta radiation.
Oh yeah, beta radiation.
Now, beta radiation consists of high-speed electrons. It's highly energetic, but it doesn't travel very far, only a few millimeters into human tissue.
So it's very localized.
Right, so it is incredibly destructive to cells, but only in a very tight radius.
Meaning if you just injected it randomly, it would be a complete disaster.
It would damage healthy tissue everywhere. So medical scientists use carrier molecules, specifically customized antibodies.
Okay, I'm with you.
Think of an antibody as a puzzle piece designed to only fit into one specific lock. They engineer these antibodies to seek out and bind only to the unique receptors on the surface of a cancer cell.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Then they chemically attach the radioactive yttrium-90 to those antibodies.
Oh, wow. So the antibody is basically the guided missile system, and the yttrium-90 is the payload.
That's a perfect analogy.
You inject it, the carrier molecule circulates through the bloodstream, ignoring all the healthy cells, finds the tumor, locks on, and then the yttrium-90 delivers a localized, lethal dose of radiation right to the cancer.
Exactly, sparing the healthy tissue just a few millimeters away.
It's like a master key that doesn't even belong to the biological house. But humanity figured out how to use it to pick the locks of disease.
We took an element that has nothing to do with life and engineered it to protect life.
That is incredible.
And humanity didn't just use yttrium's unique properties to manipulate biology. We used it to manipulate electrical resistance, too.
Ah, yes.
Which brings us to the realm of high-temperature superconductors.
This is a huge deal in material science.
Yeah,
But let's clarify what a superconductor actually is for a second.
good idea.
Normally, when electricity flows through a wire, like the copper wires in our homes, the electrons bump into things. There's friction, or resistance, and that loses energy as heat.
Right. But a superconductor is a material that allows electrons to flow with absolutely zero resistance.
None at all.
No energy is lost. It's a perfect electrical highway. But for decades, we only knew of materials that became superconducting at extremely cold temperatures, like temperatures close to absolute zero.
which requires liquid helium to cool them down.
Mm-hmm.
And the sources note that liquid helium is incredibly expensive, super rare, and just really difficult to handle.
But in the 1980s, there was a massive breakthrough. Scientists created a complex ceramic compound called yttrium barium copper oxide.
YBCO.
Yes, YBCO. It was the first material ever discovered that became a superconductor above the boiling point of liquid nitrogen.
Now, liquid nitrogen is still freezing. We're talking hundreds of degrees below zero. But compared to liquid helium, liquid nitrogen is cheap.
Very cheap.
You can make it easily from the air. But why yttrium? What is it actually doing in this super cold ceramic?
Just like in the laser crystals and the jet engine ceramics, yttrium is acting as the critical structural scaffold.
The backstage engineer again?
Always. The complex copper oxide layers in the material are where the electrons actually travel without resistance, but those layers need to be spaced perfectly, held in an exact rigid formation to allow the electrical highway to function.
And yttrium does that.
Yttrium provides the exact atomic size and charge required to lock those copper oxide layers into the perfect superconducting alignment.
Wow. If we look at everything so far, yttrium really is doing all the heavy lifting in the background.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really defines what the analysts in our sources call a Tier 2 or Tier 4 technological dependency.
Tier 2 or Tier 4. What does that mean exactly?
That categorization is crucial. It means if yttrium suddenly vanished from the Earth tomorrow, broad civilization wouldn't instantly collapse.
Right. We wouldn't suddenly starve. Basic physical structures wouldn't fall down.
Exactly. It's not iron or carbon or oxygen. Civilization would adapt.
Okay.
But without it, the precision technologies that define the modern era would drastically lose performance.
The magic would fade.
Precisely. Without that invisible stabilizing scaffold, lasers become weaker. Advanced radar and microwave filters degrade. Medical radiotherapy loses a vital, highly targeted tool. High-temperature superconductors stop working.
Yttrium is the invisible infrastructure of high performance.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, but we really need to talk about the physical reality of getting this invisible infrastructure out of the ground.
We do. It's not a pretty picture.
No, because we've established that this element gives us pristine, futuristic, clean technologies. We're talking about solid oxide fuel cells for clean energy, targeted medical lasers, LEDs that save massive amounts of electricity.
All very clean on the user end.
Right. But here is the massive paradox at the heart of yttrium. The process of getting it is incredibly dirty.
The environmental footprint of yttrium extraction is tied directly to the broader rare earth mining industry. And the source material is very blunt about the severe ecological costs.
Because yttrium is locked in those complex rocks, we already talked about the thousands of consecutive acid baths needed to separate the identical chemical twins.
Right, the solvent extraction.
But that extraction process happens on a massive industrial scale. Major production and refining are heavily concentrated in just a few regions. The sources specifically point to China, Myanmar, Australia, and the United States.
Mostly China and Myanmar these days.
And we are looking at massive volumes of toxic tailings, acid waste, water contamination, and severe habitat destruction. I mean, it really begs the question, are we just moving the dirt to places we don't have to look at it?
It is a profound systemic dilemma, and it's complicated by the fact that the rocks containing yttrium often naturally contain radioactive elements too.
Like thorium and uranium.
Exactly. So when you mine and refine these ores to get the yttrium out, you don't just get acid waste.
It gets worse.
You are left with radioactive byproducts that have to be meticulously managed, or they can severely pollute the local groundwater and soil.
This raises such an uncomfortable point.
Yeah.
I have to push back a little here directly to everyone listening. How can we comfortably call our advanced technologies clean when their physical supply chains require this level of toxic and radioactive waste?
It's a tough pill to swallow.
When you buy a sleek new smartphone or an electric vehicle, you aren't handed a pamphlet explaining the thousands of vats of acid required to make the screen glow or the sensors work.
This raises an important question about the ethical dimension of all this. Yttrium itself is completely neutral. It's just an element.
Right, it's not the villain.
No. But the way we acquire it reflects the intense demands of modernity. We have built a global society that demands absolute precision.
We want the crisp screens and the perfect lasers.
But that precision requires a massive, hidden, and often destructive physical extraction process. Furthermore, the geopolitical supply concentration makes this entire system incredibly precarious.
Because the refining process is so agonizingly difficult and environmentally taxing, very few nations are actually willing to scale up the necessary infrastructure, right?
Exactly. They just don't want the ecological burden.
Which makes sense, but
This means the global supply of these critical elements is tied to highly concentrated, vulnerable supply chains. The dilemma presented in the research is clear. We rely on these elements to build the next generation of green energy systems, but acquiring them is an immense environmental challenge in itself.
it's the ultimate trade-off.
It really is.
If we pull all of this together and look at the philosophical summary of the source material, Yttrium really reveals a massive shift in how human beings interact with the physical world.
How so?
Well, for centuries, progress was defined by mass and muscle. We built bigger steam engines, we forged massive heavy iron bridges, we burned literal mountains of coal.
Very visible progress.
Right, progress was highly visible and highly physical.
But today, progress isn't about bulk anymore.
Bro.
Modern progress is about purity. It's about targeting a single cancer cell without harming the tissue next to it.
It's about extreme temperature resistance in a jet turbine.
Yes. It's about manipulating a signal or passing electricity perfectly through a structured crystal. Yttrium really represents enabling intelligence.
Enabling intelligence, I like that.
It doesn't build cities directly, and it doesn't sustain biological breath. Instead, it enables the highly refined edges of civilization. It makes systems work better.
So what does this all mean? I think it means we live in a world heavily dependent on a chemical vocabulary that most of us never even learn.
That's very true.
We are entirely reliant on obscure materials, painfully separated from the earth, through complex, sometimes damaging processes, just to maintain the baseline of what we consider a normal, everyday technological life.
From the slow, creeping neutron captures in ancient dying stars to the complex, cascading acid baths in modern industrial refineries,
Yeah.
humanity has really learned how to manipulate the fundamental building blocks of the universe to shape light, guide electricity, and stabilize structure.
It really is mind-blowing when you take a step back and look at the sheer scale of the engineering behind the scenes.
That's incredible.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your day. We've spent this deep dive exploring how the cutting edge of human civilization rests almost entirely on the shoulders of obscure elements like yttrium.
The invisible engineers.
Elements that are increasingly concentrated in a few complex, ethically fraught supply chains that most people never see. If our entire high-tech future is built on this fragile, invisible foundation, are we blindly accelerating toward a bottleneck we don't even fully understand?
It's something we all need to be thinking about.
The next time you look down at a perfectly crisp, glowing screen, or the next time you hear about a perfectly precise medical laser, ask yourself what other hidden ghosts of the earth are quietly running your life right now from the backstage.